Hi, within this tutorial, I will be showing you how to create a multiple dependent drop-down list using the match, offset, and count a formula. There's another method that I use, the indirect and table ranges, which you can refer to if you're interested. It's on the link at the top. And with that said, go ahead and pause the video, download the practice workbook from the description down below, and let's get started. So within this example, we will have three drop-down lists, one being based on the headings of our categories. Then our first one to be a dependent drop-down list based on what's selected in B4, and our second drop-down dependent list based on what is selected in B6. So for the first drop-down list, we will just select B4, go to data, then data validation, select list, and our source will be based on the three headings in our categories: fruit, vegetable, herbs. We can go back and press OK. Now that we've selected that, we have our three options. And let's just select fruit for it not to be empty. Then our produce will be our first dependent drop-down list based on the three formulas given below: match, offset, and counter. Match is used to find the column position or row position, depending on what we are looking for. In this case, it is a column position of our selection in B4. So if I select fruit, I want to know that it is our first column in column D. If I select vegetables, I want to know it's our second column. So we will use that formula by typing equal to match, open parentheses, look up the word in B4, I'll make that absolute reference, comma, look up within these three headings, F4 again to make it absolute, I don't want anything to move around, comma, and it needs to be an exact match, therefore I select 0, close parentheses, and I have position 1. Now when you use match, it starts counting from column 1 to 3. That's its starting number. It starts at 1. When you use offset, it starts at 0. And I'll get to that detail soon. But just to understand that, when I use match and it looks for the word, if I selected herbs now, it will tell me it is in column 3 from where it started counting, which was at D. So it's 1, 2, 3. Now with offset, this is to display either a cell or a range based on a reference point. So if I choose the reference point to be D4 and I say offset 2 to the right, 3 down, and give me 5 rows, it will give me 5 rows, for example. So how we type that is equal to offset, open parentheses, our reference point will always be the corner of D4. Now this entire example that I'm showing you, usually this would be on a different tab, worksheet tab, and you just have to make sure that you are referring to that proper position, making sure that all your headings are in one row and its subcategories being below it. Now D4, it needs to be fixed, so it's absolute referencing, comma. Now it is asking us how many rows do you want to move down from your reference point. Right now, when it has found the heading called herbs, I want it to at least give me the first option below herbs. So therefore I'm saying go down one row. Column. Now it needs to find where it needs to go down in which column. If I do not give it any number right now, it will stay within the reference point and give me the first row below its column. However, I'm looking for herbs, so I need to move 1, 2, 3. And interesting enough, if you look at match, there's my number as it found it. However, if you remember what I just said a while back, offset doesn't start at 1, it starts at 0, which means that it needs to move 0, 1, 2 positions from the offset point. So I will select match and then subtract 1. In that way, I know that if it finds 3, it will subtract 1 and therefore it will fall on herbs. Comma. Height refers to how many rows do you want to see starting at, remember I said start at 1 row below the selection, then how many rows do you want to see? I want to see right now as a starting point, I want to see 1 row, which means that row starting at 1, just to make sure that the formula is making sense. How many columns next to that do you want to see? I don't want to see any other columns except the one within that I'm within. So I want to say 1 as well. Close parentheses, enter. So because it's herbs, I want to see parsley as the result. When I press enter, wonderful, I have parsley. And as I said, offset starts at 0. So if I chose herbs to be fruit, I want to see apple, and I do. If I want to see vegetables, I want to see broccoli, and I do. But now I want to see more than just the one because my drop-down list has to be based on everything below that. Now important, we need to notice how many rows is the maximum we deal with in all options. Here we have 1, 2, 3. There we have 2, there we have 3. So we could say 3, but as a normal practice that I do, I usually add 1 or 2 on top of that. So instead of saying I want 3 rows, I want to see 4 rows. So I'll go back into the formula of offset, F2 or double click. Where we have height is the amount of rows. So I want to say 4 rows instead of 1 row. Now, if I do click 4 rows, before I press enter, we are looking at vegetables. So I need to see broccoli, potato, and 2 more rows below that. The rows below that, if they are empty, it will be replaced with a 0. So let us press enter. And there we go. Broccoli, potato, 0, 0. Now, if I take this formula and I place this within our drop-down list in data validation, I will have a drop-down list giving me the 2 with 2 blank ones. And that's not what I really want. I want a dynamic one just showing me the available options. So we will, before we continue doing that, we will first combine the match within the offset. If we go to the formula bar at the top, having selected this, let me just copy that entire formula. But notice the copy. I won't copy the cell. I will go inside the formula bar and copy it. Control C. Then I will double click on bring together this in this cell, and then I'll Control V. When you copy the contents within a formula bar, it will not do any cell changes or cell movement as usual things would happen within cell referencing. It just takes the entire formula like text and copies it into the cell you've selected. Press enter. It should show me the same information. Now I want to take the match and place it within this so that it does not depend on 2 cells information. So we will select match. In the formula bar, select the entire formula excluding the equal to sign. Control C, or in my case right click button, and copy. Then go to the bring together one and double click to get inside its formula. Where we notice that the match information comes from the A13, we replace that. I select only the A13, Control V. Now it is a formula based on its own. Extract the information where it needs to, not looking in another cell's information. Press enter and it gives me the same result. Wonderful. That's one step closer. Now I will take that formula entirely as is with the equal to sign, copy from the formula bar. So we select produce, we go to data validation, say list, and then in source we will then Control V, paste that formula, press OK. Now when I click on the drop down, I have broccoli, potato, and as said, I have the 2 blanks, which is not acceptable because if I do have this and you could select it, it will give you other errors going forward if you had a third option like we will get to. So to remove those blanks, we use the count A formula, which is the next step. So let us go down to count A. We will take this formula and we will say that the count A's purpose is to find cells that are not empty. So when it's a 0, it's considered empty, especially this case. All right, we just wanted to use how many rows is populated with information. So when I type equal to count A, open parentheses, it wants to know which range to look at. My range is the formula that I've just typed in bring together. So I will take that entire formula from bring together. I'll just escape going back. I will go into the formula book, copy that entire formula, copy, go to count A, type again count A, open parentheses. The range I need to look into is that formula when it gives me a range. close the parentheses, enter. Now it tells you that. When I look into that entire range, I find that there are 2 rows that has information in them. Perfect. Can you display only those 2 rows? Yes, I can. And this is where it is a loop, because now that entire formula of count A needs to go back into our original offset formula. So in bring together, I will take the offset again, go into my formula bar, copy that formula with the equal to sign, paste it there, right? No problem. I don't want to see these 2, but this entire row is based on, if I go into the formula, it is based on saying 4 rows needs to be displayed, right? So that 4 needs to be replaced by the formula called count A. So let's go to count A, formula bar, copy the entire formula excluding the equal to sign, Control C, escape, go back into our offset, replace the 4 with that formula. So I just select 4 and then Control V, and now we have a dynamic formula created. When I press enter, we only see broccoli and potato being displayed. Let's test this again. Let's change vegetables to fruit. And there we go. Without the count A, we still have, because we said 4 is in our original offset, so we always have that empty one below. However, here we only see the 3. And this is the formula that we will take and place within our data validation drop-down list. So having selected here, I go to the top, copy the entire formula, copy. Then I go back to being B6, click on data validation. Let's replace this entire formula, just delete the formula again, the old one. Control V, replacing it with the one we've just made at the bottom. Press OK, and let's have a look. If I drop down, we only see the 3. If I change this to vegetables, I only have the 2. Excellent. That is drop down dependent list number 1. Now we need to go to the second one again. Right, having said that, we can then delete the offset. You can just delete all of them again. And when you understand this, we can then just maybe go a bit faster through it. We want to match. So let's use an example. We have vegetables. We can select broccoli. So when we have broccoli, we want to see a drop-down list in option being raw and cooked. Again, let's first find where broccoli is. So equal to match, open parentheses, look for broccoli. It's a fixed one, so F4 to fix to that cell, comma. Now our array is not the 3 as before, it is now the next subcategories. And that is what we'll also absolute fix, comma. It needs to be exact, and close parentheses, enter. It tells us that when it starts counting from Apple, now here we can say again, it starts here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when it starts looking from Apple, it finds that it is in the 4th column, starting at Apple. Again, offset equal to offset, open parentheses, we start at Apple, not at fruit as before. Then we fix that, comma, our rows, we want to start at 1 below, that's 1, comma. Our column is based on where we find our broccoli to be. So it would be match, but as I said, offset is 1 less in value. So we say minus 1, comma, and we have our height. Now here I will jump straight to saying the height. So I will use 4, or let's use 3, no harm in that. 3, comma, and I don't want to move anywhere further than the column I'm within. So it is only that 1 column. Close parentheses, enter, and we have, based on broccoli, the response is raw, cooked, and 0, because we said 3 rows. We don't want the 0 to display, so again we will first put the match within the offset. So copy the entire formula from formula bar inside the new one, take the match without the equal to sign, copy, go inside our offset, replace the A13 with our match, press enter. That is perfect. Now we need to remove the blanks. So we will first copy the offset formula, copy, and in count A we'll say equal to count A within the range of offset, close parentheses, and we say that it is 2. We will take the offset formula again, as that is our primary formula to have, paste it, don't forget the equal to sign, and the amount of rows is not based on the 3 as a static number but a dynamic one based on count A. So I will take the count A formula, copy, replace the 3 with the count A formula, Control V, press enter, and we have our formula. I can take that entire one from the formula bar, Control C, click on option, data validation, select list, in our source, paste the formula, press OK. Now we have raw cooked. If I select fruit, then I have an option of apple, banana, orange. Let me choose orange. What is the options of orange? Raw and juice. If I look at orange, raw and juice, yes. And there we have our formula created based on the 3 together. It looks a bit complex, but it's straightforward if you use this process, doing it part by part and then just bringing it together. If you had to type this from scratch, unless you've been doing this for many months or years, it becomes comfortable, but this is the best logical approach of bringing it all together. Now, this is convenient doing it one cell specific. Whatever is in here, changes there. But what if you have a list of information, and let's just say per person, you need to indicate who gets fruit, who gets vegetable, who gets herbs. The same approach is done here. However, there's just a slight change that you do within your information written in the formula. Where we have had fixed absolute cell referencing, we might only fix the columns and not the rows, because if I am working within row 26, whatever I've selected in row 26 category, I want the produce to change based on that one. Again, below that, I need the produce to change based on 27 and so forth. So therefore, the same formula applies. We only need to change where the referencing needs to be fixed and where it needs to be relative. So what I mean with that is, let us go quickly back to the original approach here and just clean that up. We need to have a static option of fruit, vegetable, herbs. So I will select A26, data validation, select list. Our source will be based on these 3. And it needs to be fully fixed. Press OK. Because when I copy paste this down, it needs to stay the same. However, produce needs to be relevant to its row only. Now we will go. Let us select this and say maybe vegetables. In match, I'll type in equal to match, open parentheses, look up the value in A26, fix it, but not the entire one as done before, only fix it to its column, comma. So you'll see the fixing is $A and there's no $sign next to the 26. So the 26 remains relative to the row, comma. Look up the array. The array still needs to be the same up here, fully fixed, comma, and it needs to be exact, 0. Close parentheses, enter. So there we have our match being number 2, vegetables. Offset again, equal to offset. Open parentheses, reference still needs to be fruit, fully fixed, comma. Our rows now still needs to be 1 below when you find it, comma. Column needs to be based on the match, but as we said before, -1, comma, and the height needs to be based on count A, but for now we will say 3 rows, comma, and the width needs to be only that 1 column that we're working within, close parentheses. So no problem, based on what I select here, it changes as needed. Let us just bring that together again. So I will copy that, place it with the bring together. Then I will take match, copy the formula without the equal to sign, place it within there, replace the A13 with the match, press enter, and we have the bring together. Now again, count A needs to be brought in, so let me just copy offset, as that is my range I need to count inside of without the equal to sign. In count A equal to count A, open parentheses, paste my formula, that is my range, close parentheses, it counts 3. Now bring them together, my primary formula of offset with the equal to sign, as it's the final formula, paste, take count A without the equal to sign, copy, and within offset replace the 3, which was my amount of rows based on the count A amount of rows. Press enter, and we have our options. Now this formula I can take from the formula bar, copy it, select B26, go to data validation again as before, list, and paste. And we have our options based on what's here. So if I choose vegetables, I should see broccoli and potato. So now we will do the same again for options. Now this might seem or feel repetitive, but that's the point. The thing is, do it as much as possible so that you get comfortable creating this. But once you've done one row, I will show you how easy it is to apply to the rest. So we will then say, let's select potato for example. Now in match will be again, match, parentheses, look for potato. That needs to be fixed in the column, not the row, comma, look in the array of the next subcategory, fix that, comma, it needs to be exact 0, close parentheses, enter, offset equal to offset, open parentheses, the reference point needs to start at apple, fix that, comma, our rows need to be one below, comma, the columns need to be based on what's in match, -1, comma, the height needs to be the max we see is 3, comma, and it needs to be in the same column of 1, not anymore, close parentheses, enter. There we have based on our potato, the options are boiled and fried, which we have here, boiled and fried, and 0. Let's just bring that together in formula bar copy, just delete the old. Let's paste that formula, take the match, copy, place it within the A13 position, Control V, enter. Let us take away the 0 by putting in the count A, so the range is this formula, Control C, in count A, open parentheses, place that formula, close parentheses, we have 2, and take our primary formula, offset, we'll paste in there, and we'll take the count A without the equal to sign, Control C, copy, and we will place it within the amount of height rows, so it's not 3 but based on what count A is calculated. Press enter, and we have our 2 without the 0. That formula, I can then Control C, select options here, data validation, list, and paste the formula. Press OK, and now we have boiled, fried, options with potato. If I change this to broccoli, the options are raw and cooked. Broccoli has raw and cooked. Correct. Now, when you want to apply this to the rest, you can just select all 3, Control C, and then just go down as many as you need and Control V. So if I choose the second one to be fruit, I should see that the drop down here is not based on anything else but the one next to it. So we have apple, banana, orange. And based on banana, I should see raw and bread. So if I go there, raw and bread. Again with vegetables, if I choose herbs, this one should be parsley, celery, mustard. With celery, we have soup. And that is as easy as it gets using these 3 formulas. Now, do take note that the difference between having done the one above and the one below is that the formula was exactly the same if you had noticed. The only difference was that first part of where you were referencing your cells to. So when I say referencing, it is actually the part where it speaks to match. and match being match the information based on B26. As you can see here, this one says based on information in B26, you will then give me options. Whereas with the one above here, the only difference was that it had a fully fixed absolute referencing cell. Everything else was exactly the same. But you don't really need to remember that. Just importantly to know that if you're going down in rows, you make sure that your columns are fixed with the match. The rest are all the same in absolute referencing. If you had done a different approach of doing it to columns, going downward based on information above that instead of to the left of that, you would have then fixed your row instead of fixing your column. So I really would love to hear your feedback. Let me know if this helped you. If there was any scenario that you'd like me to maybe look at using this formula integrated with it something else, I'd love to hear those examples. It's really a pleasure for me to help where I can. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to creating your next tutorial.